particularly the Austrians. They criticized him, they called him names. He stood up under it all. He's just an amazing youngster.
Well, Frank, they may not like it very much, but the facts of life are that here he is standing in the starting gate of...
With the Lancia Stratos, the brand had enjoyed days of glory on the global rally scene. Thus, when the new Group B regulations were published in 1980, the powerful Italian conglomerate led by Fiat undertook the necessary work to continue that streak of professional successes. Soon, the spiritual successor to the legendary Stratos would appear, a model born to win rallies. The Lancia 037, Group B at that time, a team of engineers and designers led by Sergio Limon and Giorgio Pianta, was immersed in a world of changing ideas. The concept of supercharging was on the table, initially considering the evolution of the 131 Abarth with a turbo engine. This idea was championed by Giovanni Tonti and Cesare Fiorio. The option of adapting the V8 engine from the Ferrari 308 was also discussed in the offices. However, the 131, which was nearing the end of its production run, was ultimately dismissed as an option. Lacking a clear direction, the focus shifted to a mid-engine solution. Brilliant Italian ideas emerged, though many were unfeasible. Finally, they decided to use the core of an existing production vehicle to speed up development time. The chosen model was the Lancia Beta Monte Carlo, a mid-engine coupe that already had a sports career in Group 5, where it had won the 1980 and 1981 World Makes Championships. It was also competing in the Wild German DRM Championship, where legends of the past were already associated with Lancia. In March 1980, work began on a structure based on two tubular steel subframes stemming from the Monte Carlo's central chassis section. The project was internally named S37, a prelude to the inspiration for its final name. Meanwhile, based on pertinent aerodynamic studies, Bryn Farina sculpted the shape of the new Group B car. Although the new design bore striking similarities to the Monte Carlo, new technological foundations were being forged while retaining all the typical attributes of race cars of the era: tubular frames, auxiliary components, a mid-engine layout, rear-wheel drive, independent suspension, a ZF gearbox, and a lightweight body with easily removable panels for mechanical access. The engine department is perhaps the most interesting. We're talking about the idyllic twin-cam engine created by the magic of Lebanese engineer Aurelio Lampredi. This dual overhead camshaft block first appeared in 1966 to power the Fiat 124 Sport Coupe. The iron block featured an aluminum cylinder head housing two forged steel camshafts. Some special versions of the twin cam used hemispherical combustion chambers, but most were produced in a Pentrufe configuration. One of its most unique features was the symmetrical valve arrangement, with the intake valves angled at 31.5 degrees and the exhaust valves at 33.5 degrees. This angular configuration improved flow in the twin cam and significantly boosted power compared to the original OHV design. With a bore and stroke of 84 by 90 mm, this long stroke design allowed for shorter combustion times and higher torque. It was essentially a 2-liter extension of the 131 Abarth engine, which had previously claimed 3 manufacturers' championships in the World Rally Championship. However, unlike the Beta Monte Carlo, this time the engine block was mounted longitudinally. The cylinder head featured a hemispherical design and housed 2 camshafts directly actuating the valves. Timing was achieved using a tooth belt, making the twin cam the first mass production block to use this system. The valves were enlarged, and it employed a 5-bearing crankshaft, which was uncommon for 4-cylinder engines at the time. As anticipated, the block was supercharged with an R18 volumetric compressor designed by Abarth, delivering a maximum boost of 0.9 bars. Starting in 1983, this system was complemented with water injection, applied directly to the compressor chamber to cool the charge. In its final evolution, the Lancia 037 declared 350 horsepower from a 2.1-liter configuration. All this was managed by a Weber Marelli IADW 200 control unit with integrated ignition and Champion N84G spark plugs featuring static synchronization. Weighing just over 1,000 kilograms, the weight distribution was well balanced, with 42% at the front and 58% at the rear. At the time, Audi had just introduced its Quattro prototype with all-wheel drive, a concept already emerging as the future of rallying. Lancia, however, chose the classic rear-wheel drive configuration due to a lack of development time for an all-wheel drive system. The new Group B regulations required the construction of 200 units for homologation. At this point, Lancia streamlined its resources to support its new weapon, the 037 Rally, which was born specifically for that purpose. The earlier design was certainly innovative for its time. A row of warning lights topped the analog indicators, and the cockpit had to be specially adapted for drivers like Rural and Alain, who were taller than most competitors. The implementation of a flexible fuel tank was another first. The two Pirelli Secure F3 tanks operated via an electric pump. Unlike other Group B cars that caught fire on impact, such as the Delta S4 or Ford RS200, the Lancia 037 never suffered from this issue. The tubular subframes greatly aided suspension development. The McPherson struts of the 131 had been a headache in previous chapters, so the 037 featured a front suspension with double wishbones and, for the rear, a setup with two lower arms and an upper triangle. Mario Pucci implemented the use of dual shock absorbers for each rear wheel, and the SNR bearings mimicked those of the Citroën CX. The gearbox was a ZF unit, the same version used in sports cars like the BMW M1 and the Tommaso Pantera, while the Pirelli P7 tires were specially developed for the car. Its debut at the 1982 Tour de Corse could be described as somewhat lackluster. Marco Alain had to settle for an uninspiring 9th place, though this could be justified by the fact that Lancia was running fairly basic chassis in this early stage of development. Essentially, apart from changes to the chassis, the cars were almost equivalent to the street-legal Stradale homologation versions, with power outputs around 250 horsepower. The rest of the season was no better. Lancia's trajectory was defined by constant mechanical failures. Marco Alain even made harsh statements, calling the 037 one of the worst rally cars he had driven. With the 1982 season effectively serving as a testing period, Lancia was ready for the 1983 season. During the summer, several evolutionary tasks had been carried out, including replacing the outdated carburetor system with Bosch mechanical fuel injection. At this point, water injection was also adopted, as previously mentioned, and aerodynamics were revised. The changes transformed the 037 from a problematic experimental vehicle into the champion of the season. In 1983, Walter Rural and Marco Alain sealed victories in asphalt rallies thanks to the excellent dynamics of the 037. Although it was at a disadvantage against the all-wheel drive Audi cars, which were initially heavier and clumsier, the 037 still had a competitive edge. In 1984, when Lancia had already begun work on the new 038 all-wheel drive project, the 037 revealed its final evolution. By this point, it featured the 2.1-liter engine, reduced weight, and a more functional body design to tackle the unique challenges of rallying. Its performance remained strong that year, but the improvements made to the Audi Quattro and the sudden emergence of the Peugeot 205 T16 with all-wheel drive sealed its fate. In a desperate attempt to compete with the dominance of 4x4 rivals, Lancia experimented with a new double-tire system humorously called the Sandwich. For these tests, Goodyear provided the materials instead of the usual supplier, Pirelli. However, the entire process remained anecdotal. Still, the 037 made its final appearances in the 1985 championship. Unfortunately, that year was marked by the death of champion Attilio Bettega in the Tour de Corse. The Audis, with their advanced 4x4 S1E2 Evolution, had become unsustainable rivals for a rear-wheel drive car. As a result, the competition for the title was reduced to a battle with the fresh and agile Peugeots. The final event of the season, the RAC Rally in the United Kingdom, revealed Lancia's new technical marvel, the Delta S4. Surprisingly, the 037 continued to serve the Martini racing team until 1986. For the grueling Safari Rally, Lancia brought 5 chassis to Nairobi, where they still managed to secure a third-place finish, holding their own against wild all-wheel drive beasts. And that concludes this episode dedicated to rallying and specifically to Group B. I hope you enjoyed it because rallying is a discipline I hold especially dear, and I always love working on rally content. So, as always, share, like, and subscribe to stay updated because there's more content from all disciplines on the way. Thank you for your support, and as always, greetings.